everyone, now as I'm doing this mystery pop-up segment, it's June 19th, better known as Juneteenth. Now here's the history of Juneteenth. On Freedom's Eve, or the eve of January 1st, 1863, the first watch night services took place. On that night, enslaved and free African Americans gathered in churches and private homes all across the country, awaiting news that the Emancipation Proclamation had taken effect. At the stroke of midnight, prayers were answered as all enslaved people in Confederate states were declared legally free. Union soldiers, many of whom were black, marched on the plantations and across cities in the South, reading small copies of the Emancipation Proclamation, spreading news of the freedom in the Confederate States. Only through the 13th Amendment did emancipation end slavery throughout the U.S. But not everyone in Confederate territory would be immediately free. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation was made effective in 1863, it cannot be implemented in places still under Confederate control. As a result, in the westernmost Confederate state of Texas, enslaved people would not be free until much later. Freedom finally came on June 19, 1865, when some 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas. The Army announced that the more than 250,000 enslaved black people in the state were freed by executive decree. This day came to be known as Juneteenth by the newly freed people in Texas, and this date also marked the official end of slavery. And ever since then, it's been 159 years, and ever since then, there have been celebrations commemorating this milestone. You have parades, you have balls, you have cookouts, you name it. And because this was a very important and exciting time in our country's history. Alright, this is a Juneteenth Awareness Comic Hero tee, and inside of Speech Bubbles, you have the colors of the Juneteenth flag, and then the fist, and the broken chains. And then here on the left sleeve you have the Juneteenth flag. Then here on the right sleeve you have the date, June 19th, 1865. Now if you would like one of your own, you can find them on iamthecomichero.com/shop. Alright, I bought a few books, and because I bought quite a few, I ended up splitting them in half, so you'll see the second half later on in the show. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and reveal the top half. So here we go. First up is the Avengers number 15. Batman and Robin number 10. Blood Hunt number 3. Blue Beetle number 10. Is that 10? Yeah, it's 10. Deadpool number 3. Fantastic Four number 21. And Green Lantern number 12. Alright, that's 7. Which for now brings the total number of comics that I bought since December of 1997 to 12,937. Now, if you want to find out what other books I bought, stay tuned. Comic Hero Show starts right now. Now kick that intro. edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host, Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. The summer of superheroes continues, and on this episode, I'm showing some love to the Emerald Archer, the Green Arrow. Now I'm going to touch base more on the character a little later on, but for right now, it's time to give away a free t-shirt. Alright, on last week's episode, I asked, which U.S. state is the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern from? Well, the correct answer is California. And 6 people have answered correctly, and because they've answered correctly, your name's been entered in a drawing for a free tee. And that drawing takes place right now. So the winner of the free tee for this week's episode of the show is... George Timon from Abingdon, Virginia. So congratulations, George. You win yourself a free Comic Hero tee. Alright, here's the question for next week's episode, and this is a Marvel question. Which Marvel villain inadvertently helped inspire ankle monitors? Alright, here are the hints. The first hint is that this character made his first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man number 50 in 1967 and was created by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. The second hint, this character's code name is also a word that means a main or large bolt in a central position, or a person or thing that is essential to the success of an organization or operation. The third hint, this character appears throughout various Marvel Studios projects and has been played by Vincent D'Onofrio. The fourth hint, this character was the main antagonist in the 2003 Daredevil movie and was played by the late great Michael Clark Duncan. And then the fifth and final hint, this character was voiced by the late great Roscoe Lee Brown on the Spider-Man animated series in the 90s. Everyone who answers correctly will be entered in a drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. Alright, now Mike Hart from Monroe, Louisiana has requested a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, and this one features DC's resident intergalactic bounty hunter going up against an amped up version of Wolverine that appeared in a crossover with Ghost Rider last year. Representing DC, we have Lobo. And representing Marvel, we have Helverine. These two are going to duke it out in a segment I like to call...
The Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown.
Welcome to the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Today, it's Lobo versus Helverine. Lobo is an expert marksman and hand-to-hand combatant who possesses superhuman physical abilities, regeneration, immortality, and invulnerability. In addition to Wolverine's adamantium-laced skeletal system and claws, Helverine has many powers and abilities, including enhanced senses of sight, smell, and hearing, fire breath, telekinesis, mind control, and acid generation. Who would win? Lobo would hardly land any blows in this fight, but he won't necessarily have to. Lobo would charge at Helverine while riding on his cosmic chopper and intend to clothesline him, but the latter would use his fire breath to engulf Lobo in flames. This proves to be unsuccessful, with Lobo being unaffected by fire. Helverine then charges at Lobo and cuts off his head and limbs. Helverine wins. But wait! Lobo immediately begins to pull his head and limbs back together and get back in the fight. Helverine then generates an abundant and lethal dose of acid and hurls it at Lobo. Helverine wins. But wait! Lobo can basically regenerate himself out of a pool of blood, which he does. He then spear tackles Helverine and begins to punch Helverine and cracks his adamantium. In a last-ditch effort, Helverine attempts to subdue Lobo with mind control. While doing this, Helverine learns of Lobo's history, becomes overwhelmed, and stabs himself in the heart. Lobo wins. And that concludes this fight on the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Thank you, Mike Hart, for that fight. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'll have another one for episode 486. Now, if you want to make a request, you can go ahead and do so. I have rules, though. The first rule is that there has to be at least one comic book or manga character involved. The second rule, that comic book or manga character can go up against another comic book or manga character, a video game character, or a serious-minded cartoon character like Optimus Prime, Megatron, Voltron, Lion-O, anyone like that. And then my third rule, make sure your request make sense. Don't make it lopsided. It really wouldn't make a lot of sense for, I don't know, Catwoman to go up against Aunt May. All right, let's get to the comics I bought this week. Comic books I bought this week. All right, here we go. First up is the Incredible Hulk number 13. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 21. Sinister Sons number 5. Spider-Boy number 8. Suicide Squad Dream Team number 4. Thundercats number 5. And finally, Ultimate X-Men number 5. All right, that's 7, which brings the total number of comics that I bought since December of 1997 to 12,944. All right, well, I hope y'all enjoyed this week's episode. Here's a question again for a free tee for next week's episode of the show. Which Marvel villain inadvertently helped inspire ankle monitors? All right, here are the hints again. The first hint is that this character made his first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man number 50 in 1967 and was created by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. The second hint, this character's code name is also a word that means a main or large bolt in a center position, or a person or thing that is essential to the success of an organization or operation. The third hint, this character appears throughout various Marvel Studios projects and has been played by Vincent D'Onofrio. The fourth hint, this character was the main antagonist in the 2003 Daredevil movie and was played by the late, great Michael Clark Duncan. And then the fifth and final hint, this character was voiced by the late, great Roscoe Lee Brown on the Spider-Man animated series in the 90s. Everyone who answers correctly will be entered in the drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. And congratulations to George Timon from Abingdon, Virginia, who won a free tee on this episode. All right, part of the Summer of Superheroes, I'm celebrating the Green Arrow. Now, his real name is Oliver Jonas Queen, and his first appearance was in More Fun Comics number 73 in November of 1941, and it was created by Mort Weisinger and George Papp. Now, his abilities are, he possesses peak human physical and mental conditioning, is a highly skilled martial artist and hand-to-hand combatant, is a master archer and marksman, an expert acrobat, and he possesses high-tech equipment, armor, compound bow, and various types of specialty arrows. Now, his character summary is that he's a wealthy playboy who becomes an expert archer after being shipwrecked on a desert island. And he makes himself a bow and arrows and trains himself to become an expert with them. And throughout his history of comics, in addition to being solo and part of the and part of Queen Industries and Team Arrow, he's also been a member of the Justice League, the Outsiders, and the Seven Soldiers of Victory. Now, other versions of him throughout media, he had his own TV show that was on the CW for a few years called Arrow, and he was played by Stephen Amell. And then also he appeared on episodes of Smallville and was played by Justin Hartley. And then he was on Justice League Unlimited, which is an animated series from DC and Warner Brothers, and was voiced by Ken Schreiner. Really love this character. I mean, he's been a staying power character. And also, while I'm thinking about it, at one point when he was presumed dead, his son, Connor Hawke, took up the mantle for a few years. Alright, well, this is a Green Arrow comic hero tee. And if you would like one of your own, you can find them on iamthecomichero.com/shop. Alright, here's the road ahead for the show. On next week's episode, the Summer of Superheroes rolls on. I'm going to change things up a bit. On next week's episode, I'm celebrating the 85th anniversary of Batman. And then on episode 486, I'm celebrating the 55th anniversary of Sam Wilson. Now, throughout a majority of history, he took on the mantle of the Falcon. But in both the comics and in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he's currently Captain America. Although in the comics, he is the Cinematic Universe, he's Captain America by himself. But in the comics, he is Captain America alongside Steve Rogers. And then on episode 487, I'm celebrating the 60th anniversary of Hawkeye. Now, I know that I've surpassed 12,900 comics, and I'm 56 away from 13,000. But I really don't want this to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to celebrate the milestone when it gets there, like I usually do. But the emphasis on it is going to take somewhat of a back seat to the Summer of Superheroes. But don't worry. In the coming weeks, I'm going to start thinking up some things for a 13,000 comics design, and I may need your help. So if you're watching this on social media, or even if you're watching this directly on YouTube, I'm going to need your help real soon. So stay tuned for that. All right, and even though it's just over 4 months away, meet me at the first annual Louisiana Delta Comic Con on November 2nd. It's going to be on the main campus of the Louisiana Delta Community College in Monroe, Louisiana. This is the first annual one, and this is hopefully the first of many. And just like I said last week, I'm going to agree in principle to do it every year. And the main reason is because I grew up in the area. Well, I didn't grow up in the area. I mean, after I was born in Minden, and I was raised in rural Claiborne Parish, but the legend of the comic hero got started in the Twin Cities when I was living out there for both college and work. So in some instances, this is a homecoming for me. And really looking forward to catching up with some familiar faces, and I'm ready to meet some new faces and hopefully expand my fan base. All right, if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. And as soon as you're done, hit subscribe. And if you're watching this on the Comic Book Lovers Facebook page, welcome. And as soon as you're done, hit subscribe. And if you're watching this on the East Texas Comic-Con fans Facebook page, welcome. And as soon as you're done, go on YouTube and hit subscribe. All right, I'm Victor Nolly on the Comic Hero. I'll see you next week for episode 485. So until then, be safe, be blessed, be a hero.